What's good everybody, this is CP and welcome back to another fantasy basketball video. Just a quick disclaimer here, do not blindly follow all the information I'm about to share in this video. Like everybody else, I could be completely wrong. So the most important thing to do is do your own research and make your own final decisions. So let's not waste any more time and 走起吧. For amazing luck in fantasy basketball this year, make sure you like this video within the next 5 seconds. I wouldn't risk it. So basically today I'm going to talk about a few players I would classify as high risk, high reward sleepers. And in my opinion, these players have pretty good upside with the potential to outplay their current fantasy rankings, especially in the second half of the season where your games actually matters. Now the first player I'm going to talk about is Jalen Suggs of the Orlando Magic. For those of you unaware, he was the 5th overall pick of the Magic back in the 2021 NBA draft, and the Magic seems to be quite high on him to be one of their franchise players at least for the next couple years. In my opinion, he's a pretty strong hold right now. For one, the Magic are giving him the ability to play, so over 30 minutes a night, which is pretty crazy for a rookie. And secondly, his steals and assist numbers looks to be above average. Obviously, if you own him, then his shooting and consistency is going to be the biggest issues. At the same time, if you look at the Orlando Magic's depth chart, they don't really have a legit threat to take Jalen Suggs minutes in my opinion. Even when Markelle Fultz does come back, I feel like he's more of a threat to Cole Anthony's minutes. And like all rookies, I feel like they start off pretty slow, and over the first 5 to 6 games he actually showed some pretty impressive scoring ability for a first year player. For right now his triple isn't going down, but if we learned anything in the past, rookies usually take a couple months to get settled in the NBA. For example, last year LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards really came on strong in the last 2 months of the season to help some people win leagues. So in my opinion, Jalen Suggs could be one of those players that finish in the top 80 to top 90 to finish off the second half of the season. And moving on, staying with the Orlando Magic, another young player that has impressed me this year is Franz Wagner, rookie. He's a shooting guard slash small forward, and based on his early season run, his stats actually has been pretty impressive. In my opinion, he's one of the more versatile rookies to go after if you want someone who can give you good mix of stats in scoring, triples, steals, and get you the occasional high rebound game as well. At the same time, the Orlando Magic looks like they're gonna go young this year, especially at the small forward position. It seems like they're gonna give Franz Wagner a good opportunity to run with those minutes. Even if Terrence Ross might be a little bit of a threat, I feel like if Wagner continues to improve, then the Magic are just going to leave him on the floor. And similar to Jalen Suggs, if he continues to find consistency in this game, then I feel like he could average more than 13 points a game, which is his current points per game average right now. I feel like at worst, Wagner could be a very solid deep league act who can give you above average numbers in triples, steals, and potentially blocks, and double-digit figures in scoring as well. In terms of upside, I feel like if he continues to improve, he has the ability to finish off the second half of the season as a top 100 fantasy player. What's good everybody, this is CP again, and I just wanted to quickly introduce a fantasy app to you called PrizePicks, which I think you could try out to add more excitement into your fantasy season. Considered as the simplest fantasy game on the market by many, in my opinion, it is a nice complement to some of the season-long leagues you might be playing in this year. PrizePicks is extremely straightforward. You simply pick 2 to 5 players and can win up to 10x your cash on any entry. It's just you versus the projections. Yes, it's that simple. As a bonus, all users will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Remember to use the link below and my promo code CP4C to sign up. Moving on to the next player, I really like what I'm seeing from Cam Reddish of the Atlanta Hawks right now. Currently heading this 3rd year, and based on the stats, it seems like he's having a somewhat of a breakout year this year, especially in terms of scoring. If he continues this trend, he's going to set new career highs pretty much across the board in the offensive categories, especially for triples made and point per game. And to be quite frank, the Hawks are not even starting him, and they're not even giving him that much minutes, but somehow he has found way to produce and has given you some pretty nice stat lines. So in terms of upside, I feel like Reddish can jump from being a 10-point player to maybe a 15 to 16-point player. At the same time, he's really only one injury away from seeing significant minutes in the Hawks rotation. Even though if he doesn't get the opportunity, he still is going to become one of the more important players to come off the bench for the Hawks. Overall, he's not a must roster player in my opinion, but I still feel like he's a worthwhile streamer to add to your teams, especially during some tough weeks. You could use him to stream to give you those extra points and score. If you're looking for a sleeper at the center position, I don't think there are too many players to take a flyer on than Alperen Sengun of the Houston Rockets. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but it seems like based on the small sample size we have seen, the Rockets haven't really unleashed him for crazy minutes yet. But overall, he's still finding ways to produce. It's a small sample size, but his per 36 minute stats sees him as a 16 and 7 player with over 1 block per game. Obviously, if you're rostering Sengun, then 4 of his most dominant categories are going to be rebounds, steals, blocks, and field goal percentage. At the same time, he's not afraid to shoot the 3, and surprisingly, he hit a couple the last few games, so that could be a nice little extra element for you to have. Overall, I really like his upside because right now he's playing barely under 20 minutes. And guessing by the second half of the season, the Rockets are going to tank and they're going to give their younger guys a huge opportunity to produce. So for example, if his minutes get bumped up to 25 to 30 minutes, then I see him being the same type of player that Isaiah Stewart was for the Detroit Pistons late last season. With that in mind, if you have a roster spot to hold for him and if you can wait until the second half of the season, then I feel like he could be one of the most slept on players to roster. Now moving on to the next player, depending on how deep your league is, I feel like Cade Cunningham could be one of those sleepers that some owners might give up on sometime early in the season, and if you have the opportunity to scoop him up, then he could be one of those players in the second half that could give you some crazy top 80 to top 70 value. He has the ability to give you scoring, of course. At the same time, he can hit threes, get rebounds, get assists and steals, and give you the occasional block as well. So essentially, he's one of those point guard, shooting guard who can do it all. And to be quite honest, the Detroit Pistons don't have the best roster. So as long as Cade is healthy, he's going to get minutes. I feel like he should get north of 28 to 30 minutes a night. Like LaMelo Ball last year, he's going to be very frustrating to own for the first 3 months. But then if you're able to get through that hump, then Cade could actually break out in the second half and be one of your huge difference makers, and especially in deeper leagues. And now going to the Toronto Raptors, I feel like they have 2 very high risk but high reward sleepers who has the potential to outplay their current fantasy rankings. The first player is Precious Achiuwa. Obviously right now we're already seeing a little bit of what he can do. Overall, he's obviously not the most well-rounded fantasy player, but if you were to roster him, then the stats that you might be going after is definitely rebounds, blocks, and field goal percentage. At the same time, the Raptors are not a deep team at the center position, so like I said before in the previous video, I'm not convinced that Chris Boucher is their full-time center. And unless they make a trade somewhere mid-season, then Precious Achiuwa is going to eat up some of those minutes at the big man position. He has a pretty good motor, he can run with the team and can get you those extra boards every game, and the defensive stats as well. In terms of upside, he definitely doesn't have as high as an upside as some of the other players on this list, but overall I feel like he could be one of those sneaky good deep league streamers who could give you some extra stats when you need them. If you want to swing for the fences for a home run, then I feel like Delano Banton of the Toronto Raptors might be one of those players that you might throw the kitchen sink at. Especially if you have a lot of injured players and you're desperate, then he could be one of those guys. Simply because right now he's not rostered in any leagues I'm in, for that matter. And secondly, for a young player, he's actually making a name for himself, and the Raptors staff seems to be really high on him. Obviously, with Siakam and Utah coming back, Banton could get demoted or maybe end up in the G League. But in my opinion, this is one of those high risk, high reward plays that you might want to keep on your watch list just in case the Raptors deal with crazy injuries. Then Banton could be one of those players that come out of nowhere, especially in the second half, and give you those crazy stats, or streaming stats at least, to help you win those important matchups. Finally, for my last high-risk, high-reward player, I'm going to go with the oldest player on this list, Matisse Thybulle of the Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, if you're looking to take on Thybulle, you're not drafting him for his scoring. But besides from that, he is actually a very, very good player to go after, especially for crazy defensive stats. Especially in the waiver wire, it's very hard to find players with high blocks and high steals, and that's exactly what he gives you. At the same time, he's a low turnover guy, and based on his defensive defensive play, it always seems to be buying him minutes on the Philadelphia 76ers rotation. They seem to like to use him in different situations. So as long as he's healthy, I feel like he's gonna see at least 25 minutes a night and be one of their more important defensive players. So if you're going after steals and blocks and above average figures in field goal percentage and low turnover rates, then Thibault might be one of those players that you keep on the last part of your roster, or be a streamer to get you through some very tough weeks, especially if you need defensive stats.